Hello there and welcome to the Card Grotto. Today I'm creating a galaxy background and debossing with dies. So let's get started. This is the Hero Arts Hero Studio July 2024 Fancy Dies of the Month. I'm using the background die today. I really love the stylized look of these clouds, but there is also a separate die of a hot air balloon, a separate cloud and also a kite in that set as well. I'm temporarily adhering a panel of white cardstock down onto some scrap paper. That's going to hold it in place while I do my ink blending on top. I do often jump between this method and using a sticky mat. I find that I really like using both of them, and for today I decided to go with the scrap paper. I'm taking some Hero Arts core inks in lots of bright colours, and I'm just adding random blobs of these colours onto the background to start my galaxy. So I used lemon yellow at the top. I'm now going in with Aquatic. And I am making these blobs of colour a little bit bigger than they actually need to be, but because when I add the black over the top, it's going to shrink them slightly. I can now go in with Ultra Pink, and I really love this shade. It's really quite bright and vibrant, but my ink pad does need re-inking, so I am going over it a few times just to get that saturation of colour that I want. I can now go in with Paradise in the bottom right hand corner. I'm not too concerned if any of these blobs look splotchy, because I'm adding so many layers over the top. You're never going to be able to see how well these were ink blended in the first place. I can now go in with Amethyst in the left hand side. I'm then taking a pitch black core ink, and I'm taking an extra large blending brush, and I'm just going to go around the outside edges and then in between all of those blobs of colour. And I'm using the extra large blending brush first compared to the large blending brush, because I find that the larger the brush, the smoother the blend that I tend to get. And I want to make sure that I've got a nice transition between the black ink and also of those colours. So I'm going around the outside edges and then in between all of those blobs of colour as well. And then once I've kind of got those edges of the colours blended, I can then go in with a large blending brush, so one size smaller, and just really try and saturate that black colour to be a lot darker. So I'm focusing most of the darker colour towards the outside edges, but I do just want to try and go around all of those blobs of colour as well. In hindsight, I think I would have preferred to work on this a little bit more and really darken the black colour, but in the end, because I'm adding so many layers onto this, I think it worked out okay. I'm now taking the same colours of inks that I used for those blobs, and I'm just going over the top of them. That's going to make them a little bit more saturated, but it's also going to help just blend the colour into the black as well. Unfortunately, I did mess up with the yellow. I didn't realise that I had black ink on my yellow brush, and so I ended up just adding more black into that yellow colour, which is really disappointing. I was tempted at this point to start my background again, but I'd spent so much time doing this ink blending and I would have wasted so much ink, so I don't like how it turned out, but I did decide just to kind of carry on. I'm adding a little bit more black around the blobs of colour and then also the outside edges as well. I then want to add a little bit extra interest onto this background, so I'm taking the Hero Arts Star Cluster stencil, and I can just about see through the stencil to see where the colours of ink are, and I'm going over the top, but I'm actually extending the ink blending with the stencil over where the area is of the colour. So the Hero Arts core ink, some of them are hybrid ink, so they do have some pigment properties to them. And so some of the areas, some of the colours, not all of them, did show up over the black ink, which I thought was really cool. It gave like a cool effect to the background. And I really love this kind of stencil because it's got the kind of like stars and the little dots and things. So it looks kind of like there's some movement to the galaxy. And I think it's a really cool way just to, like I say, say, add a little bit of extra interest. I'm not doing it so that you see the stencil as a whole kind of shape. I am just going in and adding it sort of in separate areas, so that some of the areas you see the stencil a little bit more and some of them you see a little bit less, because this background is pretty much the only thing on the card apart from my sentiment. I wanted to go a little bit all out with the background than I probably usually would do for my clean and simple cards. So before I carry on adding any more layers to that background, I do want to do the debossing with the die. So I've got my Platinum 6 die cutting machine here, and I've got the sandwich ready for embossing with a die. Any die cutting machine should work with this, but you do want to have a rubber mat, and that's that grey mat there that's underneath my panel of cardstock. So what this rubber mat does is it gives some resistance underneath the die so that the die doesn't cut all the way through the cardstock, and it leaves an impression rather than actually cutting it. So some areas get debossed and some areas get embossed, which is really fun. I really love the look of doing this with dies. I've added a piece of printer paper over the top of my panel just so that I don't get any ink on my top cutting plate. So just running that through my Platinum 6 die cutting machine, and like I say, this is going to create an impression into the cardstock. I didn't hold it down with any tape, so it did shift a little bit, but I know that I'm going to cut this down, so I wasn't too concerned about that. But you can see that I've got that really lovely impression of that die, and it gives a lot of kind of raised and indented areas, like I say, debossed and embossed, so it gives a little bit of texture to the background as well as adding that lovely pattern of the clouds. I did get a little bit of cracking of the cardstock, so you can see the white area of the cardstock peeking through, so I do just go back over that with the ink blending brushes just to cover that up. I wanted to add a little bit of shimmer onto this background, so I'm taking the Hero Arts Black and Shimmer Tone on Tone Metallic Spray, and I'm focusing it mainly in the corners, and you can see here where I've got quite a lot there on that top right hand corner. It gives like a really lovely sort of silvery look. I did go in with some paper towel to see if I could remove some of it, because I felt at the time there was a little bit too much. It didn't honestly remove much at all, but in the end I was really grateful for that because I really love how it turned out. I really love that extra shimmer. I'm now taking the Hero Arts White Glimmer metallic ink, and I'm picking that up with a brush, tapping the brush over the panel of cardstock to add those white dots onto the background, and that's going to kind of look a little bit like stars. Although I have the stars from the stenciling, it's quite nice to have the stars of the white as well, and I do think these kind of splatters do sort of bring the whole background together. Like I say, it's a little bit more busy than I would usually go for, but I do really love how it turned out. So I'm going to set that aside to dry while I work on my sentiment. I'm using the Hero Arts Luggage Tech Alphabet Fancy dies for my sentiment. I thought it would be quite good to use alphabet dies so that I can custom make my sentiment for the galaxy background. And I'm taking the letters to spell out the words dream big. I thought it would go with the galaxy background so that your dreams can be as big as the galaxy or as big as you want them to be. I'm holding the dies down with some low tack tape and cutting them from some white cardstock. So just popping those down, and then I can run those through my die cutting machine. I'm using the Hero Arts Compact Cutter today. This is a really great little die cutting machine, perfect for these smaller dies. With the compact cutter, you do want to cut so that the cutting is coming upwards, if that makes sense. So what I tend to do is place it down like I would do with an ordinary machine, and then flip over the plates so that you're cutting upwards. Sometimes I forget otherwise to do that, and it is the best way to cut on that machine. It doesn't warp the plates at all. So I've cut those letters another 4 times from white cardstock so that I can stack them up one on top of each other, and that's just going to give me some really lovely dimension to the sentiment. Because it's just the sentiment and the background, I do want to make sure that this pops really nicely, and the best way to do that I find is with dimension. And I could do this with some foam tape behind the letters, but I do find quite often, especially with letters, it's a little bit nicer for me personally to just cut out multiples of the letter and stack them one on top of each other, make it really nice and solid. I could do that with foam sheet, but I do find with foam sheet sometimes it does distort the letters a little bit, and so I don't tend to use foam sheet, especially for alphabet dies. So I'm just using some liquid glue to try and line them up as best as possible, and just using a pokey tool there just to remove any excess glue that may seep out the sides. I've then got my background piece here, and because I didn't hold it down with any tape, the outside edge is a little bit uneven, so I'm just going to cut that down with a guillotine. It does mean that I'm going to end up with a slightly smaller card. If I wanted to add it onto a card base, I've got a really nice border around the outside edge, but for this card I didn't really want that border, so I am going to make it so that my card is a little bit smaller. So I'm just adding the panel with some tape runner adhesive into the top kind of left hand corner, and then I will cut away the excess at the bottom and on the right hand side. I've now got my letters and I can place them down onto my card so I can see where I want to adhere them before I actually stick anything down. And I'm going to have it so that the letters aren't straight across. Not only does this help because my card is a little bit thinner in terms of width, but it also looks quite good. I think just with the galaxy background and this particular sentiment, I thought it worked quite well with the more kind of stylized clouds in the background as well. Although I'm not adding the letters on straight, I do want to try and centre them as best as possible. So I'm starting off with the letter I and I'm eyeballing it. I'm not kind of measuring anything, but I'm just trying to get that in the centre as best as possible. And once I think it's centred, then I can add in all of the other letters. And I do just dab away the excess glue from the back of the letters onto my scrap paper, just to make sure that none of that glue is going to ooze out of the sides. So I started off with the D and the M just to try and centre them, and then I'm now going in with the other letters. And I think it does look quite cool just having them sort of wibbly wobbly on the card. I'm then just going to place something heavy over the top while the glue dries. I can then finish off by adding some Hero Hues transparent enamel dots. And I really love that these are transparent. I think that they work particularly well with this background because you can still see the background through it, and I think that they kind of just blend into the background a little bit more than maybe the opaque ones would. So I'm trying to sort of coordinate the colours of the enamel dots with the background. So I'm adding 2 blue ones here at the top, and I've added some purple and some pink. I'm now going in with a yellow one here from the Sunset collection towards the top where the yellow area is. And then I wasn't sure what to do at this point. I like how it looked, but I didn't think it was that balanced. So I decided to add another purple one here at the bottom and then another pink one as well. Although I prefer to add embellishments in odd numbers, I do think that this does look a lot more balanced than it did before. And I felt that if I'd added another one to make it odd number, it wouldn't really be that balanced. So I decided to leave it as is. So that is the card finished for today. I really love how that cloud die looks in the background. I think it would still look lovely cut, like as an actual die, but I do really love how it looks embossed and debossed. Links to the products that I used will be listed in the description bar on YouTube and also over on my blog. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.